Hey, how y'all doing today? Welcome to another edition of Mr. Parker's Neighborhood. Today, I always say you're gonna learn something, but yeah, you're gonna learn something today. My guest today is Mr. Jeremiah Blackwell Jr. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I like to always play a little game with the people to see who they think my guest is by asking them what do they think he does. So we're gonna do a little throw out there, multiple choice. All right, so here we go. So is my guest A, a professor, B, an actor, C, a philosopher, or D, none of the above? All right, y'all gonna be wrong, so it don't even matter. Mr. Blackwell, will you tell the people what it is you did or you are doing now?
Well, I'm retired now. I'm retired military from the United States Navy, having served 21 and a half years.
Right. So like I say, so y'all guess something else. I know y'all did, but it's okay. It's okay. So now that we've done the preliminaries, this is my brother Maestro Sigalo. How are you, sir? What's up, Frat?
Everything is kosher.
Well, can you tell people a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
Basically, I'm Jeremiah Blackwell Jr., the son of my father, Jeremiah Blackwell Sr. I was born in Helena, Arkansas, but we moved around back in the early 60s, and we ended up moving to my grandparents' and great-grandparents' place in Mississippi. And I grew up in Mississippi, basically from being about 6 years old after having moved to Florida and then later having to move to Mississippi. And grew up in Mississippi all my life. And then basically now here back in Mississippi living.
So now as growing up, so do you have any siblings or is it just you?
I am the sibling, but due to harsh times growing up, I'm the baby of the family. And there was a brother that was stillborn before me, as well so as the eldest of us was my sister, who I never met because she died of pneumonia at 9 months, and my folks couldn't afford medicine.
Okay. Like say, like you said you did a lot of traveling around growing up, based on the job situations or was one of the parents in the service or something?
Well, my father was Army, and then he left the Army after World War II and still worked for the Army via the Army Corps of Engineers because ended up working and retiring from them. And my mother is basically Black history because she ended up getting into the civil rights movement, and she can easily be Googled, and they have video clips and videos on YouTube of her. So she is basically the co-part of the civil rights movement. Anybody in civil rights knows my mother. And a lot of distinguished people have met her over the years. And my second, like a godmother, is Fannie Lou Hamer. I grew up with her being like my second mom, all in that Mississippi movement. And it's just like you can speak anybody from Mississippi was I was around them and my parents were around them and we were all in it together during that civil rights era.
Okay, and your mother's name is
You need a Blackwell.
Nita Blackwell. Yeah, like I told y'all see, y'all thought I was just making stuff up. You gonna learn today. You gonna learn today. And so being in that, how was it as far going to school, having the fact that your mother was an activist and all that in the civil rights movement? Was that a difficult thing for you going to school?
Not really. I enjoy going to school. And then during that era, we had it to where we had to sue the state of Mississippi in order for integration. I went through integration because when I started, I went to school in an all black school, and then we became integrated because my parents, through me, sued the state of Mississippi. My case is a civil rights case that's just like Brown versus the Board of Education. Well, there's my case is documented and can easily be pulled up through Google or Siri. Also, it's basically Blackwell versus Issaquah County in the state of Mississippi. You can Google it and it will pop up and it will show where I got threw out of school for wearing a SNCC button, thanks to John Lewis giving my mom, because they were all in the civil rights movement together. So that's another entity to where I grew up with having to go to a white school, transferred, and took all the nice little verbal abuse as well so as physical abuse in the transition of integrating schools.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's why I'm saying, like, okay, wait a minute now. That was around the time where all that was happening. So I know going to school was a little rough for you because, like I say, I mean, we talk about it, we've seen it, but then to be in it, it's like, man, that's a different mindset. How? I mean, like I said, you enjoy going to school, but dealing with that on a daily basis, I mean, how did you continue to just stay focused on and we're not talking about high school yet. This is still grade school, right?
Yes, it was basically first grade. And basically, my parents instilled in me, especially my father, that I should fear no one because he didn't fear anyone. And basically, whites knew that. That's why they never approached my dad anything but correct.
Okay.
Basically, they always said my dad was crazy. So that's what because dad was taught by my mom because he didn't have an education, and he ended up learning to read and write via my mom. My mom went to school basically she's from Lula, Mississippi, and she would go across the river to Helena to stay with her aunt and go to school when she wasn't on the plantation because they were on the plantation as sharecroppers. All of that is in her book. All of that is in her history. But for me, every day was the challenge of I was not gonna put up with anything that they did to me. I was spit on. I was taxing my seat, all that, while being whispered and called nigger by kids my age and up. But that I had to resolve via my father that nothing was gonna make me afraid at all.
All right. So no, so I'm going through grade school. Now, when you got to high school, are you getting involved in any sports? Because of let the people know you're not a short fella.
No, I'm 6'4", and I played all sports. I played football, basketball, ran track, did baseball until I got hit with a baseball and I quit. And I played tennis. I made it to the state, but we didn't win state in tennis. I was in doubles because I'm so tall. I could be right there on the net. But I was considered a jock, but I was quiet and reserved. Both my parents were talkers, so I'm not much of a talker.
So now, so we're dealing with high school. Now, did you go into the service after high school, or you went to college first?
I went to college. I basically had scholarships to schools in New York because the thing about it was, I during the civil rights movement, I went to summer camps. I got out of Mississippi and saw that there was a different world outside of Mississippi. So ever since I was 8 years old, I would go to my Jewish godparents in New York City, stay with them, and they would take me up to Vermont and New Hampshire to summer camps. And that's how I got to meet people from all over the world and interact with kids my age and older. And I did that up until basically I started college, going every year. I ended up becoming counselor at that same summer camps. I went to like several, but the one that really reflected on my life was as I got older and became a teen was Camp Kokosing. It was in Thetford Center, Vermont. And that's how I ended up going on a trip, thanks to the summer camp, over to Dartmouth University and playing with computers, which later became the thing that I loved.
Okay, so now you snuck something in there quickly. How does a black child from Mississippi end up with Jewish godparents?
Because those Jewish godparents came to Mississippi to help in the civil rights movement, and they adopted me. Oh, it's even wilder because Shirley MacLaine adopted me also.
Okay.
Sent me coats and clothing and all. So it was like, these white people, there are nice white people. So I figured that out and said, okay, all of them aren't bad. I said, they kind of like us. All black people ain't bad either.
Right. So now, okay, so I mean, for a young man growing up, that's a lot to have to say, because I know, like you said, we're getting the Jewish family, Shirley MacLaine, and dealing with the ridicule of what's going on, and steady moving and being shown different pieces of the world than Mississippi. I know, I mean, it's like, how did you finally? Okay, so when you went to college, what did you major in? What were you going to college for?
Well, after having to be forced to obey my mother and come back home, I no longer could pursue basketball dreams, even though I tried to.
Okay.
My mother somehow talked me into coming to school back in Mississippi. And so I wasn't about to go to Ole Miss. I looked at Southern Mississippi, and in Mississippi State, I said, well, I kind of like them. So I ended up going to Mississippi State, trying to walk on. But their athletic program was a total cluster because we went through like 3 coaches. And basketball was horrendous at Mississippi State. And all of that went awry. But ended up, she gave me a pamphlet because I wanted to go into business because my Jewish godparent, Robert Schwartz, worked for American Express down on Wall Street. So I figured I had to hook up. But She changed my major to electrical engineering. I became one of two blacks to show up for electrical engineering in at Mississippi State. Then it ended up to where I said I can't fight this no longer because I went to school, saw everybody getting out of class at 12, and I'm still going to class, and I'm like, I, I don't like this engineering. No way. My father wanted me to become a civil engineer because that's what he was around working after he had got out of the army. But I said no to both of those. I ended up switching my major back to business data process, and thus ended up after 2.5 years, my son was birthed out of wedlock, my eldest, and thus started the change of my life. I went into the service late.
Okay. Okay. Man, okay. Okay, so wait a minute. Now again, we're in Mississippi State, Mississippi.
Yeah.
I got that service. So how did you end up at the University of Arkansas, Monticello?
Because I ended up leaving school trying to take care of my son.
Okay.
And I had left and worked for Mississippi Forestry
Okay.
and said, okay, I can't do this labor side. I need to be in management. So the next thing was I said, I didn't want to go back to state because I didn't want all them fools to see me coming back. So then the other alternative was Louisiana Tech or University of Arkansas at Monticello. And I went to the campus, saw it, and said, okay, this is all right. And that's how I ended up there at the University of Arkansas. I ended up as a forestry major. There again, I'm one of two blacks in the whole thing. I'm like, man, this is like deja vu again. Because me and another black guy were the only two blacks in the forestry department. And later on, it helped me in going into the service about learning about forestry because my major was switched then to forestry with a wildlife biology minor. And that's how I ended up at University of Arkansas at Monticello.
Now, Maestro, I'm laughing because in my head, I'm doing what I've learned from you as far as connecting the different dots, and these dots ain't connected, Maestro.
Hey, I've lived a wild and crazy life.
I'm like, now we start off as business, then we change
Yeah,
it to engineering, then we change it to civil, and then we end up in forestry.
yeah. I'm jumping majors like hurdles and ended up going into the service from UAM. I went into the Navy
Okay.
because I and then ended up divorcing my first wife because she didn't like the fact that I played Sigma. Be, be, because I came from she comes from an HBCU.
Okay. Okay.
She's a Mississippi Valley alum.
Okay. Okay.
But I dated her in high school. And so I was married at the time when I went to forestry school at UAM, trying to get things situated. This wasn't the mother of my child, so you know about back issues on that neighborhood, especially having a son at the time.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's how the dot got connected. And I ended up going into the service.
Okay. And you said you pledged Phi Beta Sigma And that was when? When did you pledge Phi Beta Sigma?
Spring of '83.
Okay.
I had came there and was there for the forestry and all of the transferred credits over into my new major
Okay.
from Mississippi State.
Okay.
Um, but that was something because at Mississippi State, I look back on it and I said I should have stayed, but I was trying to deal with the long and hard course load of electrical engineering, while at the same time I wanted to pledge. And at that time in the year, they used to have what they call smokers.
Okay.
I went to the smoker. The ironic thing was weird is that I hung out with the Qs,
Mm.
and my mother came to speak, and I had to get out in front, take a picture with her because she came and spoke at state.
Okay.
And all the Qs was trying to dress me up in, I guess, something similar and was proud of it, but I didn't play as Q. I went to a Sigma smoker and thought about pledging and didn't, and knew I liked those guys because I saw them and looked at them whenever I came into the union where it was different than everybody else
Mm. Mm.
with the brotherhood. And I was just finishing up what I started when I got to UAM, to where I was basically saying I'm going to finish this
Okay.
because it's something about it that I liked, the brotherhood, especially being basically, I guess you could say, an only child.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So now pledging Phi Beta Sigma. All right, you got to give it to us. You got to give us the line, the number you were, and all that good stuff.
Well, I started out day one uh, as being tail 10.
Okay.
Uh, yes, basically the line was 10 of us, and I didn't know anybody on my line.
Okay.
All of us showed up and they turned the lights off, turned them back on, made us swear in, and 10. That quickly went after the first night to 5. That was because there was some things that people weren't sure they wanted to do and
Right.
attend to anymore. Uh, what was weird, this is all before the internet, and to this day, I'm still asking all them older heads, how did y'all get them many brothers in that place? And where all were they from? Because I know we saw at least about no more than 5 on the yard.
Okay. Okay.
And basically, everybody, we had to go off yard, go into everybody's house to wake them up and yada, yada, yada. To whereas, why was there close to at least 30? when they cut the lights back on.
I just said, Maestro, it was 5 when we were doing friendly. And then you turn
Yeah,
the lights off, you turn it back on, it's 30.
they were real nice. Do you need anything? You need a drink of water? Need some coffee? How about some soda? No, thank you. And they cut that light off and cut it back on, and it was like, what have I done? But that ended up going down to 3. At that time, we had to make our own boards because
Uh-huh.
every place in the fraternity room, we were fortunate, whereas with our fraternity, we had the bottom basement of the nursing building,
Okay.
and
Okay.
the door was painted blue. Our paraphernalia was on the outside of it, and the administration was real. To this day, it loves us on campus, um, and they let us use that as a frat house per se.
Okay.
Whereas we had different stuff that was in it, and the whole basement of the nursing building in the center of campus was our place of meeting as well. So as we could hold anything in there. We held parties if we didn't hold them in the union, which was so astronomical to me because I had never seen that before.
Mm.
And then, as things would have it, throughout the pledge period, crossed, and our line name that was given to us was Sigma Tears because we ended up with just three
Okay.
last through the Hell Week.
Mm.
So that's how we came about that name of Sigma Tears, so all for one and one for Sigma. And then um, one guy dropped because he was afraid of having to do some things. And to this day, he's an eternal presence that's still living in Monticello, according to some of the older heads.
Ooh.
But I haven't seen him since he left us.
Mm.
Me and my Sands, we were only two that made it.
Mm.
So I was tail two.
All right, all right. You you a deuce. Okay, I'm not gonna hold it against you. All right,
That's because Garland was the ace by default. That's why I say I be telling having all these kids now. They when they look up on my sweaters and coats and stuff that I had, they be saying, "How you ended up the deuce?" I was like by default, I'm the deuce default, and he's the deuce by default. I mean the ace by default because they whittle us down to just two.
it's two. And your name is your name is what? What's your name? Not Jeremiah Blackwell Jr., but
It's Maestro Sigalo TMF. The TMF is tantalizing, mesmerizing, freakazoid.
see, y'all see y'all the quiet ones. You gotta watch the quiet ones. So now, Maestro, as far as being a part of Sigma and the history of growing up, you have become what they got like they said brother AJ called you are a Black history because stating
Yeah.
what you've been through some things and met some people. I mean,
I'm Navy, and you know what us sailors, we go around the world. I've been to every place except for South America
okay,
on this planet. Every little island you could spin the globe and poof, your finger pop on it. I've been there. That means from Greenland and North Pole to the South Pole. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, uh, all the islands in the Pacific, a little island called Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, along with Seychelles. I've been everywhere. I've been to Alaska freezing, realized I'm from Mississippi and Alaska's too damn cold. Uh, to basically just being all over Korea and Thailand, Japan, Hawaii more than I liked. Uh, all of Europe, pretty much, from Mad Cow time to when all of the Russian states broke up. I was there.
wow,
To going back to the motherland on both sides, with Libya to uh, Morocco to Egypt more times than law allows, to being in Israel everywhere. So I know in the news.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to those places.
Okay, okay.
Um, to basically just all of anything, Italy to France to Yugoslavian states that are now broke up. I was there when it was Yugoslavia. Um,
Wow.
I've been to Finland, Holland, Germany, France, Spain. Love Spain. Got to go there.